First, we're going to start with our first presenter, which is Brian Leakey, the Director for Department of Pesticide Regulation.
The Department of Pesticide Regulation is a science-based organization. We have about 400 people. 300 of them are scientists. We need to keep this in science, but it's also a what we call risk management, which means we take the information and then we look at it and then we figure out what is best for society. As I said, our core is protecting human health. And human health is everything from the applicator, the person applying the pesticide, and we've been working a lot with people you don't think of as applicators, so we're working with Los Angeles County on the restaurant workers, because they use a lot of pesticides. The people that clean our hotels, they are applying pesticides. So we're really working to make sure that they're safe. Protecting the environment is a very large part of what we do. It's becoming bigger and bigger. And when we say environment, we're thinking of everything from your neighbor's pet, to the pollinators, to the endangered species, to water quality. So all life other than humans, kind of the environment. And the third part of what we do is try to get, what I said is reduce risk, but our integrated pest management, IPM. That means that you look at the pest that is threatening your health or your property, the termites, and you figure out how can I control that pest with the most safest way. And if you don't have to use chemistry, then that's where you want to go first.
The Ag Department has been around for, as you can see, it started in 1881. They actually called us horticultural commissions back then. Anything that had to do with agriculture, the commissions, or the horticultural commissioner, took care of it, whether it was pesticides, whether it was plantings, water wells. They kind of kept track of all that. And in 1920, they changed the name to the Ag Commissioners under the California Department of Food and Agriculture, which DPR was part of that structure back then as well. We have 53 county ag commissioners in 58 counties, and that number changes from time to time because of retirements or counties that combine, because there's 58 counties in the state. We average anywhere between 13 and 20,000 inspections each year out in the field for the Department of Pesticide Regulations. We issue over 42,000 permits each year to buy and purchase and to use pesticides in California. My department, we hire 50 full-time staff members, and we have anywhere between 12 and 15 or so extra help people that help us do the jobs that we need to do. We grow more than 120 commodities in this county, and we issue 1,000 pesticide permits. And this is part of my job as an ag commissioner and sealer of weights and measures, educate wherever I can, and my staff is supposed to do the same thing, to teach you about those laws and regulations that you may not know about. So what happens if you don't follow the law or the regulation? Here are some things that we can actually do. We issue warnings, we issue violations, and then we get to this fine level of fining them money, and that's called administrative civil penalty. And so once we get to that point, a lot of people actually are trying to work with us, and my job is to educate as we're going along with this, but sometimes we have to put the hammer down and slap some hands, I guess, in order to get their attention. But what I found out that going straight to an administrative, or going to a fine, just finding these people money doesn't always work. But educating them about why we're doing it actually helps out a little bit.
My name is Cadenas, and I'm the Youth Outreach and Education Specialist for DPR. As many of you guys know, Sanchez used to handle the outreach department, but now she got promoted, and in a couple of minutes she's gonna share with us what she's doing now. But now I'm gonna talk more about the outreach department and the things that we've done. So Marta got hired in 2007, and since then she started doing an amazing job doing outreach approach. So she partnered with the county agricultural commissioners and to service agencies throughout the state to distribute pesticide safety information, to provide trainings and workshops. Also, like I mentioned, she developed trust with the community and state and local agencies. Of course, everything was done through communication and listening skills, and especially that part is very important because we do a lot of events, community health events or community resources events, and we get a lot of feedback from community members, from campesinos, from campesinas, and they tell us their struggles, their questions, where to report, how to report, and we are there to help them out. And of course, we created a lot of resources, in bilingual resources. One of our very popular, it's in your folder, are Don't Mix Bleach with Dishwashing Soap. A lot of people in their houses, especially our moms or anyone who is doing the cleaning in the house, they tend to mix bleach with other types of products like fabuloso, pinol, and they create these big toxic bombs. And we're not supposed to do that. So every time I go to these fairs, I tell the persons, the people, and they're shocked of the information that I'm giving them. So we have a lot of YouTube videos that we also have available for you guys. And we also created our emergency pocket cards where people, they're very small, very easy to put it in your pocket, and so people can know exactly what to do in case they get exposed to pesticides. Of course, all of these materials are available on our website, and if you need materials, just give me a call or send me an email, and I'll be more than happy to send you materials. Outreach is very important. I know it's my department, but I want to leave with making you also an outreach representative, because you can go back to your community, go back to Lideres Campesinas, go back to your house and talk more about my department and what DPR does.
The DPR environmental justice activities, again, is continuing collaboration with the commissioners. Basically, I am the eyes and ears for the community. I talk to the commissioners, let them know what the community's concerns are. I bring it up to them and also let them know, for example, somebody complained about a drift near their homes. So the person will get back the call from the county ag commissioner, and I told the ag commissioner, explain to that person what took you to the steps, of if either was a violation or it wasn't a violation. Because sometimes they get a call and they said, oh, we found that everything was in compliance. And that's it. And what does that mean? So let's educate the community leaders so they can communicate it through the communities on how our programs work. Because I'm very proud of how DPR programs are run at the state level and also at the county level. Cali PA Environmental Justice Initiative Program. This is done through the Cali EPA, California Environmental Protection Agency. We created these initiatives where we go into certain counties, and we did it in Imperial last. Right now we're working again in Stockton. And we go in, we interview community leaders, and we ask them what type of concerns they have, not only on pesticides, but remember, it's water board, air, recycle. So we listen to their concerns, and we also talk to the local enforcement to see how we can resolve these issues. And then eventually we go back and we report back to the community saying, we found so many violations, so many things took place, so we report back. So on the horizons, we have a lot of videos, but like Brian mentioned, we're working now videos with the Hmong community, for the Hmong community. We have a contract with Fresno State so they can develop this Hmong videos. We're also creating the mobile complaint app, but we're changing the name to mobile reporting app. Yes, and remember, I don't like the word complaint. And this is gonna be where if they have a smartphone, they can pinpoint exactly where they are, the farm worker. And that is gonna get sent out to the ag commissioner so they can do an investigation. And they can also do it anonymously.
Ahora les voy a decir la misión. La misión de Líderes Campesinas es fortalecer el liderazgo de la campesina para que ella sea el puente que logre los cambios sociales, económicos y políticos y asegure sus derechos.
The goal of the Campesinas is to better the condition of the workers and the people who are in the countryside working in the farms, and to better their situation politically, economically, and culturally, and all ways.
Sus derechos humanos.
And also that we would receive human rights.
Mili Treviño Sauceda
We are looking at Millie Trevino Socena,
es la fundadora de la organización Líderes Campesinas.
and she is the founder of the organization of Lideres Campesinas.
Y una de las cofundadoras, Claudia Galvez. Ella no-
And then the co-founder, Claudia Galvez.
Este es un movimiento que empezó aquí en el Valle de Coachella
This is a movement that started here in the Coachella Valley.
y empezamos a organizarnos por todo el estado. Mili
And we
Treviño fue la que
started to
empezó a organizar.
organize ourselves in the entire state. My leader is the one who started to organize.
Siempre buscando la voz de la campesina y que seamos en las que logremos los cambios dentro de nuestras comunidades.
Always looking for the goals of the people, of the agriculture workers and people in the countryside, and trying to better the situation for the people who work in the farms in the countryside.
Sobre todo en nuestras comunidades rurales.
We have a photograph here of the co-founders.
Son bastantes.
A lot of us.
Porque fue en alrededor del estado de que estábamos.
Because this happened all over the state.
Esta fue la primera convivencia
And this was the first time that we spent time all of us together.
que se llevó a cabo en Fresno, California.
And this took place in Fresno, California.
Como ven ahí hay bastantes compañeros.
And as you can see there are quite a lot of us.
Se nos ha dado reconocimientos
We have received awards
por el trabajo que se hace bajo violencia doméstica y asalto sexual y pesticidas.
for the work that we've done against wrong use of pesticides, domestic violence, and also sexual harassment and sexual misconduct.
Tuvimos una segunda convivencia en Riverside, California.
We had a second Congress in Riverside, California.
Y es parte del movimiento y se hizo es una manta, ¿verdad?
And part
El
of the
slogan,
movement made the slogan that is on
transformando vidas en el nuevo milenio.
we are transforming lives in the new millennium.
There was a question about how do we protect the employees, and the Department of Pesticide Regulation, working out the safety, does a continuous training to the counties as far as what kind of regulation, when they are enforcing the regulations, how these regulations are promulgated. Another program that enforcement branch is involved with is a residue program, what we call a residue program, but it is basically monitoring food safety and agricultural produce in variety of different places such as wholesalers, packing houses, farmers market, retail stores. The state has the most stringent system or program for monitoring food and ensuring that our food supplies are safe and legal when it comes to pesticide residue.
So let's talk about a monitoring program. It's completely voluntary to well owners, so we go out into the areas of the state and we approach well owners and ask them if we can take a sample of their water. We like to look for shallow groundwater, shallow wells, because that's the most vulnerable wells. Usually wells that go draw water up from very great depths are less vulnerable to pesticide contamination. So we're looking for, generally we try to go for domestic single dwelling wells because they're the shallowest groundwater wells, but we also sample agricultural and public supply wells. This is a shot taken of a pond in the Tracy area in San Joaquin County. What we found here is we started getting detections of a pesticide called hexazinone in the groundwater in the Tracy area, trying to figure out why that was happening. We did some soil coring in some of the vulnerable soils, what we thought were vulnerable soils, but we never found it. We never found the hexazinone moving deep down into the soil. Hexazinone was a pesticide almost exclusively used on alfalfa. So we then started focusing on the alfalfa fields. And we noticed in the Tracy area that a lot of the farmers had these ponds. And what was happening was the water was running off the alfalfa into these ponds. The ponds were leaky. The water was leaking through the bottom of the ponds and into the groundwater. So now, after we've discovered that, there's now regulations on ponds. And for ponds where they're very leaky, the water has to be immediately pumped back out onto the field so it can run into the pond, but then it has to be recirculated back onto the pond. There's other regulations with ponds, like you cannot spray certain pesticides within the boundaries of the pond, so the water can't come into contact with the pesticide. It's also a regulation that went into effect as a result of what we found in the Tracy area. When we find a pesticide in the groundwater, we contact the registrant, and they present a defence. Obviously, they want to keep using the pesticide in the state. So there's a committee that hears the defence from the registrant, and DPR also provides an input to try and find out what's going on with the pesticide. And so this committee will review the data and then makes a recommendation to the director, and the director will decide to make a decision on whether the product should be cancelled, or maybe there can be some use restrictions or mitigation, or it could just be continued to be used if it's not considered a threat to human health.
There are several reasons why we need air monitoring data. The first one is to just identify what's in the air. We want to see if any pesticides are being used, which actually ends up in the air. And then once we find out what's in the air, we want to find out what the actual air concentrations of that is. We looked at different time periods, including the acute, which is short-term exposures, usually about a day. And then we have subchronic, which are a little longer-term exposures, usually lasting about anywhere from a few days to a few weeks. Once we know what's in the air, what typical concentration there is, we want to assess if there's any potential exposures. We also do collect air monitoring information to track trends in air over time. Do we see any spikes in certain pesticides that we need to focus on? Do we see the concentrations actually going down over time? Or do we know that, if, for example, DPR put a mitigation procedure in place, we take air samples later on to determine if the concentrations for that pesticide are actually decreasing over time.
88% of our cases in 2015 were non-ag. So these were cases in hospitals, workers using antimicrobials or disinfectants, sanitizers, home use, which I'll get into. Swimming pools is a big issue that we're seeing. These happen at physical fitness facilities. They're happening in schools and also residential. So these are the top 3 pesticide types that are involved in home exposures. Insecticides. These can be your aerosol cans. Children get into these. They accidentally spray themselves in the face. They treat them as squirt guns type and spray other kids as kind of mischievous acts. Foggers. We see a lot of fogger cases. People applying multiple foggers into one room or multiple foggers in a small confined space. Antimicrobials are a big issue. Bleach put into secondary containers, like cups, water bottles, and then another family member not knowing and drinking it, or kids getting into it.
Give you just an overview of the worker protection standard. Jahan already did a great job this morning going over some of these requirements. So I'm just gonna highlight some of the changes that we recently made to this regulation. For WPS, since there are a lot of requirements, we can't fit all of these into the label. And I don't know if you heard the statement, the label is the law. So if someone is using a product with this box that says add use requirements, and then it makes reference to the worker protection standard, then that means that that employer needs to be compliant with all these requirements under WPS. And it only applies to farm workers, those who are not directly involved with the mixing or applying or handling equipment used to apply pesticides, and then for the handlers, those who are involved in these activities. All these requirements are designed to inform the worker and handler about what pesticides are, how they enter their body, what can they do to prevent exposures in the workplace.
I'm here today to talk to you about our EnviroStore database. And that's the database that our agency uses to track permitting, cleanup, investigation sites. So as Martha mentioned, we are a member of Cal EPA. We are your sister agency. And like many of our Cal EPA agencies, we too protect human health and the environment from toxic harm. We're a multimedia regulatory agency, whereas the airborne regulates the air, state water resources, groundwater. We do soil vapor, and groundwater. So we look at a lot of sites where the soil has been contaminated by some, past site use, and it has the soil vapor has been compromised, as well as it has gotten down so far that it has made its way to the groundwater, and groundwater is contaminated as well. Our DTSC's data management system is for tracking our cleanup, permitting, enforcement, investigation efforts, and we track hazardous waste facilities and sites with known contamination or sites where there's a reason to investigate further. The database allows stakeholders to quickly access vital information about environmental cleanups and permitted facilities in their communities. A lot of times in our office, the Office of Environmental Justice and Tribal Affairs, we work with communities that are underrepresented and live near and work near sites that have caused contamination to the air, to the soil, and to groundwater. So we can search by city, zip, county. Many times we have the site code and also the name of the facility. And these are a lot of the different projects that we work on. Superfund sites, federal Superfund sites, which are MPLs, state response sites, voluntary cleanup sites. I was in the cleanup program, so I worked a lot on those. I started in the schools cleanup program when LA Unified was doing their school expansion, and they were building new schools because they had become overcrowded. So I worked in that, and they were buying up blocks and blocks of homes and building these big schools because of the overcrowding. Corrective action, tiered permit, and evaluation and investigation sites. The hazardous waste facilities is more to do with permitted facilities for the operation and post-closure. And then we have inspections, where we have our inspectors within the hazardous waste management program, where they do inspections of facilities that a lot of times they don't know what type of contamination is there. And if there's violators, then there's violations that they provide to them. If there are violations, they could be fined, and we'll have to deal with that.
Thank you for being here. We do appreciate these opportunities to participate in these workshops, as Ruben mentioned. The mission statement of the Ag Commissioner Office is to protect and promote agriculture within the county, in addition to protect the environment and to ensure the health and safety of the county citizens. That's across all of our programs, whether it's pesticide use enforcement, pest exclusion, pest detection, weights and measures. All of them go together to fulfill this mission statement. The pest control advisor can, I guess, for a short phrase, be referred to as a plant doctor. They're like the primary care doctor for the grower. Pest control advisor, they have to, once they get their licenses issued by the Department of Pesticide Regulation, they have to register with each and every county in which they work, each and every county in which they provide recommendations. They have to register with that county on a yearly basis. With PCAs, over the extent of my career, we've noted very few compliance issues with them. They're very current on what's going on with all the regulations. The electronic systems they have in place to write recommendations have helped increase that compliance level. So as a result, we don't have a lot of violations made by pest control advisors. Laundry, because there could be a potential for any types of pesticide residue on those clothing if they didn't change at the work location provided by the employer. If the field has to be posted, what those posting signs mean, and then they have the right to report any suspected pesticide use violations to regulatory agencies such as the Agricultural Commissioner's Office, which is 2 years plus the current year. Are they submitting use reports at all? And are they being submitted in a timely manner? And then again, we'll check their storage area to make sure that it is, the pesticides are being stored properly, there's labels on the containers, there's no personal protective equipment within the storage area. Is the storage area posted with warning signs saying that's a pesticide storage area? So again, if a pest control business does the work, they have to give notice to the property operator that that site is going to be treated. And that can be orally or in writing. We highly recommend that the notification be done in writing, because I could say that you gave me notice, you can say that you didn't give me notice, and then we have that war of words, and it creates a compliance issue and so forth for all parties involved. So then that information provided by the business has to be passed on to the workers so they can make sure that the workers are not going to be in the area that is going to be treated on the day of the application. You have to let me know, if I'm the grower, what pesticide you are going to be applying, including your adjuvants, like Mike was saying, your buffers, your things to break down the plant's waxy layer to make it work better. And then any precautions related to protection of persons that are listed on the label and so forth. So you may not want anybody entering that or be within a quarter mile of that field. You need to let them know that the application is going to be taking place, and you don't want them being within a quarter mile of that treatment.
I became an applicator. It's a nice job. I worked in the agriculture industry all my life. My dad had the farm in Mexico, so it's something that I like and I enjoy, and I learn every day. We learn something new. It's great.
When I'm doing a headquarters inspection, I do look for the A8 and A9 series, which fell off right here. It does have to be in the language that the employee understands. So most typically here in the Coachella Valley, it's English and Spanish, but there are other languages available on the DPR website, like Punjabi. So on the A8 series, that's for handlers. That's safety rules for pesticide handlers on farms. And it has information that it's very helpful, like emergency medical care posting, what are the employee rights, where they can find records about recent pesticide use. The next part is the A9 series. This is for field workers. So the A9 series does have to be at the field when there's 11 or more field workers. And it also has to be at the grower's central location. And it does have to be posted also in the language that the field workers can understand. And it goes over information about the pesticide label, training that's required, what training do they need, what training topics should be covered in their training, how they can protect themselves from pesticides.
Had a grower, or not a grower, but I had a person from Cal Cannabis that wanted to come see how we do inspections here. And so I just met up with Celia, and we just literally just drove around and we saw a bunch of cars, like those cars that are out there, so we knew that there were field workers out there. And so that's what we look for. We look for these big tractors, we look for these tanks, we look for cars, because we don't just have one inspection, we have multiple inspections that we can do in a day when it comes to pesticides and worker protection. We can also do inspections in the office for, checking for records. Where did it go? There it is. Looking for these types of records and all the paperwork that's involved. And so we randomly do inspections. Nothing is very rarely planned. And so we would come up on this type of situation. And today I want to introduce Mike Terry and Celia here as far as what happens on a typical day of an inspector.
And so what we would do to get to this point, a grower would do is they would figure out what kind of ground they want to grow on, what if they have water available for that ground, what conditions of that ground to grow that crop for this ground. And once they establish where they're going to do it, so say this piece of ground with peppers, they would go to Ruben, to his office in Indio, and talk to Celia or Harry or any of the guys at the office there and get a permit. And apply for a permit, get it going. Then he'd call us, set the crop up. We come out and either treat for a herbicide, insecticide, fungicide, or any type of job that the crop might need to grow. And so today what we're going to demonstrate on the product we have over here on the trailer is a typical foliar fungicide and fertilizer job for peppers. As PCAs, we give the grower a recommendation for what we think the crop needs to grow better, to treat an issue, if we've gotten to the point where there's an issue that can't be taken care of through IPM practices throughout the field already. So recommendation is basically, we're licensed to make recommendations of a certain products that we're legally allowed to recommend, where not everyone else is allowed to do that because they don't have the license to do that. That's their 3 gallons of water they need, of fresh water to start the day with for the decontamination. And so none of the water mixes, so that's a different water source from this water source, even though this water source is never contaminated.